Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to all the geeks out there, and welcome to a really weird Geek-Inspired Podcast. It's
different.
Sunday.
It's Sunday.
Unusual, but we're here on a Sunday. You can blame us for that one. Kez and I did recently get new jobs, and we cannot do the podcast on Mondays anymore. It's too early for us. We don't get home from work yet. So we're going to have to start doing them on Sundays. And Sam was gracious enough, by the way, welcome to Sam. But Sam was gracious enough to actually say that she'd be happy to do it today, which Thank you very much for changing the time. We know it was very short notice.
Thank you for
so we do appreciate it from our side. But yes, welcome to our special guest, Sam Wright, otherwise known as Techgirl. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am, like I said, off broadcast. I've just moved, so this is an empty shell. I'm sorry about the echo, and there's nothing. You guys have all the cool stuff. I have no cool stuff, but I'll change this one day.
And of course, below us we have Mr. Tunes. Geekoscopy, as always. You can read it on his hat, backwards and forwards.
Yes, you can
He'll
read
shout
it.
out at the end.
On YouTube, it'll be right. On Twitch, it'll be the opposite way, but it'll change later.
And sorry, I have to mention Unikez.
And Unikez is here.
Unikez.
Unikez should have her own intro music. It should be John Cena's theme song. Yeah, that's who Unikez should come out to.
And welcome to my lovely Kez.
Actual Kez.
The actual Kez, yes.
Real life Kez.
OG Kez. Before we get into the whole string of things, I don't like reading this. I'm just going to say it the way it is. Give us a summary of who you are and what you do, Sam.
So my name's Sam, and I talk about video games for a living. I feel like that's the best way to describe it. But yeah, I mean, if I had to go into like hectic detail, I'm a shoutcaster. I'm also a content creator, so I have a blog, I have a YouTube channel. I do those, but I wouldn't say that's where like my main source of income comes from, if you like. The shoutcasting is really where I make a living. And then I stream sometimes and do random stuff, really. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. Tech and gaming, create some content around it, talk about it, and that's my job.
Yeah. How do you define shoutcasting exactly for those who don't know?
So the best way for me to describe this, the way I describe it to my mom, is I commentate on video games and people playing video games. That's what I do. So different things. So commentating in the sense that I'm live calling the action. And then I also, this is the worst example, but it seems to work the best for South African sports fans. I'm always like, you know what Nasportza does when there's a rugby match on? And they're like, yes. I'm like, sometimes I do that for video games. And then they're like, oh, that's cool. And I understand.
That's a cool way of putting it.
Hand at it.
Yeah.
As long as you don't do that. That would just be weird.
I don't have that catchphrase yet, but I might throw it in now for a laugh one day because you've reminded me, just to see if anyone picks it up.
Then you have to have a Darren commentating with you, though. Then it would be perfect. And you can't. But I'd hand at it.
We're gonna make it happen.
So how did the not country?
It's Sunday, guys. It's Sunday. Okay.
How did you decide to make that your name or alias or whatever you want to call it?
So it's a funny story, actually. When a couple of friends and I, what had happened is that I was actually working at an engineering company in their marketing department, and I was losing my mind because I'd studied journalism and I'd come from a journalism background and writing, and I was feeling very like trapped in this super corporate old man environment, and I just wanted to do something fun. And what had started happening is my friends and a bunch of my friends had blogs, and I started writing these like silly, I mean, when I say silly, like it was a little bit silly, but like I would do phone reviews and things for them and try and like sort of explain tech in a really simple way. And then I did do silly stuff. So like it was about around the time where like the smartphone boom happened and all the Android phones were coming out and they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I did like a thing I called it the smartphone bum test. And I literally tested smartphones and which ones fitted in the pockets of skinny jeans the best and started taking photos of this and writing it and posting it. And one of my friends was like, you know what, this is really fun. Like I enjoy it. And also it's silly and it's making me giggle, but I'm also learning something from it. Why don't you set up a blog? One, then your sort of frustration at work can be directed there. You can make cool content. And then two, it also like, it's something fun that people might like. And I was like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. So I still remember we were all drinking at some bar, and that's where we came up with this idea of doing this blog. And then it needed a name. And at that stage, I wasn't going to bring in gaming, so I didn't want to use my sort of gaming alias or anything like that. We were trying to think of this like original name that could sort of stand the test of time. And every idea I had been taken already. And then my one friend, I was getting super frustrated because we had everyone ready to go in terms of building the site and getting it up and running, but it needed a name so we could book the domain. And my one friend actually said, hey, I looked up Techgirl and that's free. Why don't you get that domain? And I was like, that is a horrible name. And I was like, I hate it. It's cheese balls. Like, I can't stand it. And then 3 hours later, I was like, I'm the worst type of person because I'm kind of a just go and do it. Like, I don't like waiting. I don't like planning. When I have an idea, it must just happen. And I kind of got super frustrated and went, stuff it. That's the name. And then that was the name. And now I'm stuck with it. And it's super frustrating. But once we were up, I always thought I could change it, but it was too late. It kind of got momentum, and that was it. And that was how Techgirl came about. So it's funny because lots of people ask, but the truth is I actually don't like it, but it is what it is, and now it exists.
Interesting. I would not have thought that you didn't like the name. That's a new piece of information.
No.
That
it's a bit odd.
I found out because it's so simple. Like, I'm pretty sure there are like tons of girls out there who would like that name. Like, it's one of like a top line like type of.
I do feel bad because my friend who came up with it, I'm pretty sure when she sees stuff like this, where I'm like, I don't like it, she must be pretty annoyed. But at the time, I was like, no, I don't really think it works. But every idea I had was either way too just convoluted and ridiculous. I can't even remember what they are now, but they were just like ridiculous. And then other than that, like just not available. So it works. It was simple. It's straightforward. I think it gets, all the brand things that they tell you should pay attention to, apparently it ticks all the boxes. But it is what it is now. I've had it for 4 years and now it's part of my actual name. So I'm stuck with it.
Yeah. So it started off as a tech review blog, right? But I'm sure it's evolved over the years. So, like, what was the evolution up until this point?
So, when it started was just doing those silly sort of reviews, having a little bit of fun. It got a lot of attention very fast, which was kind of weird for me. So I suppose it was just at that stage, especially in South Africa, blogging, the concept of blogging and sort of online content creation was very new. You had your traditional media and your traditional websites, but what I was doing was like injecting a lot of opinion. When I say new, it wasn't new elsewhere, but it was new in like the tech space. So it got a lot of attention. There was also 0 females in that space at that time. And then it obviously got quite popular. And then, funny enough, I did a lot of stuff with Pippa Shabalala, who is one of my mentors, is someone I look up to. And Pippa and her friends had set up an online magazine called Spliced. And she said to me, she obviously knew I gamed, and she knew that wasn't something that I put out publicly. It wasn't on my blog. It was something that I didn't really want to go and share because I was scared. I knew at that stage what it was like being a female in the gaming space, if you like. But she said to me, well, why don't you come write for Spliced? I like the way you write. I know that you can do this. And I started writing for Spliced, and then Marco Cocamillo, who runs Glitch, he said, well, I'll come and write on Techgirl, and you should write as well. And I'll be honest, between Marco and Pippa, they kind of encouraged me. Another friend of mine, Devin, started saying, I don't understand why you don't want to talk about this, like your blog. And at that stage, Techgirl had become more than just a review site. It had started becoming very personal. So I would share a lot of my like personal stuff and be a little bit more of my own personality coming through. And they were like, you should just go do this and start talking about gaming. And that was kind of where that happened. I was terrified at the time, but made the decision, started writing more gaming content, started putting my opinion out there. And then slowly but surely it kind of built. I just decided, I think there was a point in time where I kind of went, you know what, stuff it. I'm not going to box myself in. This isn't going to be a tech blog. This isn't going to be a gaming blog. This is going to be my blog. I'm going to say what I want to say. And if my friends want to write on it, they can say what they want to say. And that's how all the content sort of moved. And then obviously the esports thing came about because my brother played games his whole life. His friends, they all competed. They were always playing at our house. I was following them around. There was a big event with R1 million prize money, and they put famous people in eggs and brought them up for this launch, and all the media had been paid to be there. And my brother's friends are running around going, this is it, my life's about to change. And I was like, no, it's not, because I'd been to enough of these events to know that tomorrow no one cares. And I kind of then wrote, there's still a blog post on Techgirl where I kind of said, you know what, stuff, and I'm going to write about this, and I'm going to tell people what's going on. And then that was how esports ended up coming into the equation as well, as I started creating content around that. So yeah, it's more just like I suppose it's just me, like as my interests go and where they go, that's what happens. Maybe if I take up baking in 3 months, you'll see more baking on Techgirl. I don't know.
Baking technology, molecular gastronomy with Samantha Wright. Yeah. When it comes to esports, I had this discussion with a teaching academic on one of my other podcasts recently. And he has the idea that because, of things like social distancing and things, high schools might actually, reduce extramural activities like, actual sports. Well, not actual sports. Esports is a sport, but physical sports because of social distancing. And what might replace it is esports. And so what do you think about, high schools getting esports clubs and getting more involved in universities and things like that?
Exciting if we saw more of that. I think it's really important as well. It normalizes it, and I think it's in a controlled environment so parents have a better understanding, because I think that's the biggest thing when we're younger that sort of puts kids off gaming, is their parents think it's weird and it's strange, whatever. If it's in a school setting where it's controlled like that, I think it could be really good. I do have concerns in South Africa. I mean, I have to be very careful about how I say this, but like in my opinion, there's certain entities that want to control that space in the school space and kind of feel like they need. There's a lot of like these weird groups that want to control certain things. So they want to control all the schools' esports. I'd like to see esports in high schools, but I don't want that. I don't think that there should be like an overseeing body controlling that, where it becomes just full of bureaucracy and BS, for want of I think it's the best way to describe it. So I think it's really important, but I think that it's also really important that schools, instead of thinking that they can just sort of hire some individual or pay some individual to run it, actually make the effort to learn about it and understand it so that they can support their kids better. But I do think you're going to see it more and more. I've seen it during lockdown, just the amount of kids that have started engaging with content, that I jump into games and I can see that there's a lot of younger kids now playing because they're at home. So there is definitely this rise, and I think that it's a great thing to bring into high schools and stuff, and it still allows that interaction when they're at home and that competitiveness which we like from sports. So I do think you'll see it more and more.
What is one thing that no one or not many people knows about you?
That I used to show jump horses at the highest level in South Africa. And I competed. Yeah, I used to jump what they call adult open, and I competed at SA Champs for like 3 years. I jumped at the sort of top level. I wasn't very good. I was terrified, but I mean, I won a few things. So yeah, lots of people don't know that. I did that when I was younger, and then just it became way too expensive, and I couldn't get sponsors, and I had to go get a real grown-up job. But yeah, that's one thing lots of people don't know about me, funny enough.
Yeah. How did you end up doing that? Like, how does one fall down that rabbit hole?
Well, I did that my whole life. I always wanted to ride horses since I was like 5 years old, and we lived on a plot, so I used to watch the ponies trot backwards and forwards, and I used to beg my parents, and my dad was just like, no, it's a ridiculous sport, too expensive. I'm not going to pay for you to go and pay all that money for all the gear, and then you don't stick it out, because that's what kids do. So I just begged and begged and begged. And eventually they were like, okay, cool, we can have one lesson a week. And I still remember my dad used to send me to the stables in tracksuit pants and school shoes. And I had to use a borrowed hard hat. Everyone else had all because I mean, it's a ridiculously privileged sport. So they had all this super expensive stuff. My dad was like, no, you can't have any of that. And if you want more than one lesson a week, or you want to ride more than one lesson a week, figure that out for yourself. By that stage, I was like 6. So I used to go, I mean, the lady that helped me when I was younger, she used to let me muck out stables so that I could ride. But like, I was 6. I wasn't cleaning those stables properly. There was no way. But because I'd just be sitting there with my little shovel trying to show, and then like brushing the ponies so then she started giving me more lessons. And then I think my dad's biggest mistake in life was stopping. So all the other kids I rode with, rich parents, lots of ponies, within 3 months, did all the things. Within a year, they were bored and they left. because my dad refused for an entire like 2-3 years. I was still in my tracksuit pants and my school shoes, trying to like raise my pocket money to buy boots. I kind of stuck it out, and then I didn't stop my whole life. And I used to get like, I still remember I'd get like a little pair of like riding pants for like my birthday, and that was my gift. And I got my first hat, which was like the biggest moments of my life, like stupid stuff like that. So that was kind of how I got into that. His mistake. He should have just thrown money at the problem, and I probably would have given up after 6 months. But then, yeah, I did it from the age of like 5 till I'd say about 24, 25. And then
jeez, that's a long time.
Yeah, I had support and sponsors and stuff along the way, but then eventually it was just like this, I can't dedicate my life to this because it was just too expensive. I think that sport is very privileged few. Yeah, a privileged few can do it, and I couldn't anymore. So then I had to go and figure out what else I was going to do.
So I managed to catch a few of them when you first started, and I found it quite interesting and fun to do. So how did you come up with your cup of coffee catch-ups for your Instagrams, that first cup of coffee chat that you used to do on Instagram? I don't know if you still do it. I haven't seen for a while.
So I did those. I made it that was kind of just we'll get to that. I don't do them anymore, but when lockdown in South Africa kind of hit, I started this thing where I did them a little bit before lockdown, funny enough. So I'd come back from Dubai and was basically in self-quarantine for a couple of weeks because of the traveling and making sure that I didn't infect anyone. And I was losing my mind in this, like, we're in this 2-bedroom apartment, and I kind of was just feeling really lonely because my job is very social and I'm out and about all the time. And I thought, look, there must be so many other people feeling like me. But at the same time, every time I went online, all I saw was this content that was like pushing at you to like bake bread from home and do yoga from home and style. And I was just like, how? Like for me personally, I was like, I just feel completely overwhelmed. I feel so flat. I feel miserable. Like that this whole thing is freaking me out. How the hell are these girls putting on a full face of makeup and baking bread, you know? And I kind of was like, I can't be the only one that feels this way. Like I can't be the only one that just feels like, oh, this is all driving me mad. So that was where I decided to sort of do cup of coffee catch-ups. I was like, my first cup of coffee in the morning. I look like trash. I've just got out of bed. There's no filter here. There's no fakeness. And I'm just going to chat to people because there's a lot of people probably sitting at home feeling the same way I'm feeling. That was originally, I mean, it wasn't even like a thought, like this is what we're going to do. I just kind of, the one day I picked up my phone, went on live and drank my first cup of coffee. And then it became a thing where we were just talking every day. And we did that the whole way through, I think it was the highest level was a level 5 and level 4 of lockdown. And then when level 3 came in, I kind of decided it was time to call it. Like we'd done it, and I felt like I also think it just ran its course. So like we've been super supportive, but it was really fun because there was just so many people that became regulars and everyone was chatting. And then I did it every morning. So like some mornings I woke up and I just had the worst morning, or I'd heard terrible news. So it was very like, we just chatted. And that was where the guy that I mentioned off camera, I think that there was a gent who was stuck in Vietnam. So he's a South African that was stuck there. He couldn't get home. He was on every day telling us and updating us on his experiences, and people could come in and just talk. There were a couple of individuals who were completely alone. Their families were far away. They were stuck in their houses. So it was just meant to be, for me, it was lonely. I just wanted to chat to people because I'm quite a social human being. And it ended up becoming like this really cool community of us just talking. And they weren't saved. They were never shared. They were literally just us all just chatting rubbish in the mornings. As if you would, I think that the best way for me to describe it would be like if you're having coffee in the morning at work, you know, you'll go hang out sort of in the cafeteria and quickly drink your first cup of coffee. That was the idea behind it. And then it just became like, for me, it was just a mental boost that I needed. It was completely selfish. I'm not even going to pretend. It was just for me. And I hope it helped other people. But for me, it was just keeping me sane, basically.
Well, I think it's a good idea because, as you said, it helped other people as well during it. And it definitely does make you not feel alone and stuff. And knowing that there are other people out there, even if it's just chatting to them via a live stream, you're not by yourself. And I think that was one of the biggest things for most people during lockdown, is so that you don't feel alone. So even if it was selfish to you, big ups to you for actually doing something like that.
Thank you.
we're gonna go back to esports. Why the hell not? How do you think? I mean, with all the esports tournaments now starting up, obviously they're getting a bit more popular with viewership and all of that. So over and above that, I mean, what else do you think has affected esports during this lockdown? I mean, obviously the viewership has increased quite substantially, but what else do you think may have happened as well?
So I think it's different. I mean, yeah. So in Europe and overseas, it's actually. I mean, if you go read the news, they'll tell you that esports is booming and it's at the best it's ever been right now, and it's super big. But if you speak to the guys in established spaces like in Germany, in Poland, like in sort of Europe and the States, they'll tell you not so much, because the majority of them were doing live events. That's cameramen, that's producers, that's lighting technicians, that's sound guys, that's makeup artists, that's photographers. None of them are working. That's what they're not. They're live event specialists. None of them are working. So they've all lost income. And by moving it online, there's no need for them. So there's a huge bubble burst that's happened that no one's talking about. So the media likes to tell you it's blowing up, but actually a lot of people lost their jobs and a lot of people are struggling. Yeah. In South Africa, though, a little bit different, obviously, because brands wanted something. Brands always have to cling on to something, right? Like, even if they don't understand it, or if they don't know it, they need to feel like they're doing something groundbreaking. So for them, it was all like, oh, well, you know, we've got all this budget. We need to do something. We can't do anything. So all our sponsored rugby players are just sitting there. We're throwing all this money out. We can't do anything. Esports, that's where we're going to throw our money. So a lot of them suddenly threw money into the South African scene, which is always good. Like, we need that. We need eyeballs on it. And I think that they've done a lot, and there's been lots of events, and it has they've brought celebs in, so there's been a lot more attention. And I definitely think it's helped South African esports. I think globally there's going to be a shrinkage, and it's coming. I think that bubble's going to burst without those live events, because those do bring in a lot of cash. But I think locally it's been good for the scene. However, we've always historically in South Africa been our best events have always been the Rages and the Comic Cons for esports eyeballs. When it comes to esports in this country, live events trump everything else. There's not going to be any live events this year. So, well, I think there might be a retraction towards the end of the year in terms of investments, which will ultimately affect it. But if I say any of this, it's considered a controversial opinion, so people will be upset, because right now everyone's on the whole, esports is going to be huge. But for me, I'm like, we need to be careful. I think right now it's working, but when sport comes back, the money has to go back to the football and the rugby, and we're going to see a little bit of a decline.
Yeah. I was also wondering about this whole esports bubble thing, because I'm not that cleared up, but from what I've heard on other shows and by other content creators, that there's too much of an injection of money. And it's like, okay, we don't actually know what the value of esports yet, because it's such a growing thing. And at some point the companies might realize, okay, this is not the best place to put the money, and then all of a sudden it might just collapse. Or, you know, it might keep on growing. But I'm really interested in South Africa, how's that going to change. But what about like hosting online events instead of like in-person events? You think that'll be a thing in any way?
I mean, yeah, so I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of work during lockdown. I don't get a lot of South African work usually. I mean, it'll normally be towards the end of the year, but I've had a lot because all these events have been happening and I have the setup. So I thought I would be without work during lockdown, but I was able to get those opportunities. But it is very much to pull back to what you were saying about the money injection. It's very, I'm sure you guys have experienced this as content creators, where people with money will look to overseas and they'll go, oh, look at PewDiePie with his however million followers, or look at Ninja. And then they come back to South Africa and they go, I want that. You don't have 15 million people watching your stuff. So what's wrong with you? And actually, I mean, do you want to look at we can discuss the socioeconomic situation. We can discuss the lack of access to data here, lack of working. I mean, we could go into this whole thing where we also could talk about the size of the population when it comes to geek and gaming content, that there's a very small, the communities. I mean, we could go into all of that, but they're going, oh, I want to throw money at this, but I want that. And I think that the same thing happens with esports, where they go, okay, I want to throw money at South African esports, but I want that, what I'm seeing over there. And when we say throw money as well, they don't want to, the thing is, and this is something, and again, I'm sure this is something you guys experience as content creators, what it costs you to make the video you're making right now in terms of the camera gear and the microphones and the data and the live streaming and all of that, it costs exactly the same as what it costs Ninja. It costs the same, it's the same amount of time, and yet brands will go, I want that, but I don't want to pay you that. Because you know what I mean? Like, so they don't understand that it costs you the same. And I think that goes the same with esports, is they go, I want that fancy show I saw overseas with the lights and the flashing things, but because this is a new industry in South Africa, I'm not going to pay you that. And then when they don't get that, they get upset and they pull their money. But I think there's a lack of education, and it goes across the board. It's not just with esports, it's with content creation and the internet in general. There's a complete lack of understanding of how this all works. They think we'll just switched our phones on and started talking to each other, you know? And I think that needs to change. So from an esports point of view in South Africa, I think that will always cause this injection and this retraction, and content creation as well. I think that there's constantly this huge injection into content creators, and then a very fast retraction, and then a couple of months later we go back to injecting more money. So until those that are making these decisions understand how this actually works, we're going to constantly see this like up and down. And I think that South African esports is going through that, and they will keep going through it for at least the next 2-3 years, in my opinion.
Also, when there's money to throw around, it's usually like throwing it at the top levels instead of like building up like a foundation. Because like my understanding is that like if you want to make a sport a thing, you need to start at grassroots level. Like you need to build a club and like have mentorships and things like that, you know. But just hosting events, I don't think that's going to give you much of a return, you know.
But that's the thing, you have to have an audience, right? You have to have a community before you can have the big thing. You can't have the big thing and go, they will come. They don't. You have to build down here to get them up there. But I mean, this conversation we can have on and on and on. It is, I think we're all having it. People know, but until people start listening, we're always going to be backwards and forwards.
On your side, though, how did you end up becoming a shoutcaster in the first place? And how can somebody else become a shoutcaster if they wanted to?
A mistake, a complete mistake. So what happened is that I was, like I said, I was making content with around esports to support my brother and his friends. Kept making content, and then I was at an event one day and someone was like, hey, listen, do you think you could do interviews if we gave you a microphone? I'd been doing these on my own YouTube channel already, so I was like, yeah, sure. Started doing those. Then suddenly you got these people coming to me saying, oh, you can host this and you can do this. And I was at those events anyway, so it just felt like a good time. And also I wanted to make a good show. Like I wanted to make cool stuff so people got excited to watch. Started doing that, started hosting, and then got offered, I think it was like my third job, got offered a chance to host at Rage. I'm under no falsehoods here. I'm well aware that they offered me the job because they realized they didn't have a female and that their audience, well, their broadcast team wasn't exactly diverse. No one said that in as many words, but I'm old enough now to realize that that's what it was, is that they needed a pair of boobs on the stage, which fine, fair enough. But the opportunity arose that I got to work with someone who's in a bit of trouble at the moment, but at the time was very well respected in the esports industry, and he had come in from overseas. I worked with him and he said to me, listen, if you're willing to take this seriously, I think that I could help you, and I think that you could actually get work overseas. I had a British passport, so I mean, travel was really easy. I thought he was joking. I didn't really take him seriously, but then a few months later, I was hating my day job. I just really wasn't happy, and I hit him up. I was in the UK for work, and I hit him up and I said, listen, if I take this seriously, what does that mean? And then he spent the next month on Discord just making me cry, telling me how rubbish I was at everything and what I needed to fix and change. But I did the work. I sat and I did the work. I read the things. I watched the videos. I did all the VODs and just kept going. Did a couple of like sort of fake broadcasts that they could ship out, and they shipped it out, and ESL said, hey, we actually quite like her. Let's bring her to Gamescom. And then that was it. So a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work, but it was I never ever once was like, this is what I want to do. I kind of was just doing it because I loved it and I fell into that space. So yeah, it was a lot of luck, which I hate saying because it seems like such a write-off, but I think it takes, if you want to get into shoutcasting, it's a lot of hard work. You need to put in the hours. One, you need to it's not about you. I think this is always the first lesson that anyone needs to learn. Shoutcasting is not about you. Your entire job is highlighting players and creating a beautiful story. It's not about you. So if you want to be famous, go stream. But if you want to tell good stories and you want to share people's stories, that's the first start. And then it's just lots of hard work. And unfortunately, with anything in the broadcast industry and content creation and anything like that, there's a little bit of luck involved as well. So.
Indeed. Speaking about content creation, like, how do you think the South African scene is gonna evolve going forward, especially after Corona? Perhaps if our internet infrastructure picks itself up, pulls its socks up, how do you think, South Africa might go forward?
I think that South Africa's got there's such a great group of passionate people. I'm going to talk specifically to like geek gaming and tech, because that's obviously what I know. Everyone's really passionate. Everyone's really excited. There's so many of us doing it. Everyone wants to help. I just think that we lack guidance in the sense that I don't think that anyone shares the brand side of it, because I think that there is a very understanding how advertising and marketing works is missing. And there's a lack of education around that, which I think is important. And two, like you said, I mean, we can chat about infrastructure and things like that. It means that there's a lot of good content creators that aren't getting their content out. But I do think we have great work, and I think we have people that do great things. So I would like to see more of that. But I do think that we need to remember as well that the industry is really small. So until brands realize that they're not going to get the millions of views that they think that they should be getting, and they realize that it's more about the engaged communities, things are still going to be difficult for creators in South Africa. But I do think we have incredible talents, and I just wish there was a way to amplify it more and showcase it more outside of the bubble. How we do that, I don't know. But that would be, I think, something I wish we could do. But I do think I think we're growing. I think we're getting more vocal. I think we're seeing more opportunities arise for content creators. So I hope with Corona and more people being at home that we'll see more of that.
Awesome. Andrew, you got the questions there. You need to ask.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment or achievement to date?
Surviving until this point and feeding myself. No, but like ask myself, no one thought I could. I think from a career point of view, it would be being able to be hired as a South African living in South Africa for an international event, which was Gamescom in 2018, I think. Yeah, 2017. 2017, I did Gamescom. So I think that for me would be my biggest highlight, just because before I did it, everyone said it couldn't be done. When I say everyone in the industry was saying it couldn't be done. Lots of people were saying that I wasn't good enough and I didn't know what I was doing and I was never going to get anywhere. And I heard a lot of just horrible things that mentally weren't great for me. So I think that would be, right now, I'd mark that as my biggest achievements, is being able to ignore all of that, put my head down, do the work, and ultimately get the job. And that was my one shot, and do a good enough job that I then got consistently hired after that.
What are your top 5 moments that you've experienced in your career since obviously starting all of this content creation? I don't think the opportunities are necessary. It's just the moments, because opportunities is like you've explained all the opportunities. So moments, best like most outsticking moments of your career.
I think the first day that the Techgirl blog went live sticks out, just because I built, like, it was a week. It was from an idea to actually existing was a week that I made it happen. And when it went up, I was just really proud, because I think anyone who builds something that's their own, whether it's a Twitch channel or YouTube channel, whatever it is, that first moment of it going up, it just meant a lot. So that was a standout moment for me, was that first day that we went live. And I was kind of like, yes, we did it. And I like finishing stuff. So having it go live is finishing. That was definitely a standout moment. I think a second standout moment for me was probably hosting a desk for a competition, a South African competition called the Samsung Galaxy Championship, which was run by a local South African organizer. It's an esports one as well, but it was it was a group of friends who sat down and had an idea and kind of wanted to do something in the South African scene, and we wanted it to look, at that point, we wanted it to look as professional as it possibly could. And I got to be the desk host, and I know how much passion everyone put into it. So going live that first day, where we had begged friends to come and do makeup for us and convinced hairdressers to do our hair for free, and we just thought we were so cool, and we were sitting on these couches, and we really just thought that like we were all so proud of what we had done. That was a big standout moment for me. When we look back, I mean, all of us will look back and cringe and be like, oh, we could have fixed that and could have fixed that, but at that moment that meant so much to all of us. And I think another big standout moment for me was being asked. That's not. Another standout moment for me was doing PUBG Europe League. So I don't know, it was another esports event, but it was in Berlin. It was my first tier 1 event. So they built this giant hangar. It was like an airplane hangar, and then all the teams went up the sides of the building, and then they had these lights flying down. It was a tier 1 event. There was just incredible talent there, and I think my biggest standout moment was standing in that airport hangar before the lights came on and just looking around and being like, wow, like what a cool opportunity that you're here and you get to talk to just incredible players and incredible people and learn from them. And I think that was a highlight. And then I think my final highlight was being flown overseas for the first time by a brand. So I didn't know that this existed. I didn't know that someone pays for your ticket, puts you in a hotel, and kind of you go to an event for them and you do whatever you need to do, but like they actually will take you somewhere else. And I think my first one was with LG. And I remember being on the plane, and I still feel like this. Every single time I'm flown anywhere, I feel exactly like this, which is just a sense of awe of like, this is cool. Like, this is really cool. We're extremely lucky to get to do what we do. We're extremely privileged. We're extremely spoiled. And it's really important that we understand that we don't get to do this without the people who support us, the people who engage with our content, the people who retweet on Twitter and whatever else. And I think like every time since then I've felt that. So that would be a standout moment as well. Being very grateful to a bunch of people who probably don't even realize what they did for me just by something as stupid as liking a Facebook post.
That's a good list.
I think you recently, well, I don't know about recently, but I've recently started watching you on Twitch. How do you think Twitch streaming differs from other types of content creation? What do you think about the local Twitch streaming community?
I'm like the worst person to speak to about this because I don't consider myself a streamer at all. I don't have a proper schedule. I just started playing games because I was on Twitch because I was at home and I didn't know what else to do with my time. So it seemed like a good idea, but I feel like I'm the worst streamer. And if you watch my streams, I forget to switch my mic on. I don't understand. Like people constantly send me like links to like these things about like how to be a Twitch streamer and what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it and how to grow your whatever, and I just don't care. Like I just play games with my friends and whatever. So I'm the worst person to ask because I don't know how. I engage with other people that I know that are playing games, and I'll go and laugh on their stream. But I just do it because it's funny and it's fun. But it's made me realize there's such incredible communities of people, especially again in South Africa, who are playing different games and streaming every day. And I've met so many of them now online who are like, there's guys that are on there every day, 4 or 5 hours a day, grinding it out. And they're so passionate. And they're the ones that send me the links about growing your following and how, like, they want to help me. Like, they're literally like, yeah, this is how you do it. And I'm like, I feel bad because I'm like, I don't care. Like, they do this like super serious with the graphics and everything. And I'm just like, but it's made me realize that there's a really cool group. And I think it's really, we need to be focusing more on them. I get super frustrated when I see other South Africans and they're only watching overseas content. Like, I wish that they would support local. I don't know what it is about South Africa where we have this like weird thing where we don't want to support South African content. And I think that needs to change because I honestly think that the streamers that we have in South Africa, the ones that I've watched at least, are far more entertaining. Like, they're far more real. They're not copy pasting a particular look and feel that some of them are, but like the majority really do have a unique story to tell. So it's been fun for me. It's an interesting space. Again, though, I'm not a streamer. I'm never going to be a streamer. When the whole craziness of lockdown is gone, I will not be streaming. I'll be back at work, I hope, fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm the worst person else. I like to play Rainbow Six Siege and shoot my teammates in the head, basically.
Friendly fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that point, I don't know. I think when it comes to the South African audience, like they put too much stock in prestige, and like numbers. I think over than actually finding somebody who's like you, or finding somebody who has your similar story to tell. And I don't know where it comes from or why it is like that, but it's like, okay, I suppose you just like watching people who have big followings. Okay, that's weird.
I think it's always like it's a bit of a FOMO, isn't it? So you see someone with a big following and you presume that there's a reason they have a big following, so you should follow them too. Most people, if you ask them why do you watch Shroud, I mean, I don't know, they'll be like, oh, his gameplay is cool, but I think that they watch Shroud because everyone else is watching Shroud. So that's just the way it goes, unfortunately. I'm seeing a change, though. Like, I'm seeing more and more small South African streamers get a far better response, and their audiences are starting to grow. So I do think people are starting to look for content that they identify with over content that they see everyone else watching.
But before I run away, Oddly Odds is in the chat, and he wants to know, if you couldn't create content for financial gain, what would you do instead?
If I can create content, I mean, I'd keep doing what I was doing. So I was in before I got into this, I was in journalism and then marketing and branding. So I think creating this content was just a bonus that it became like a financial rewards thing. But I think if it wasn't for this, I'd really like to be probably like a strategist for a brand. I'd love to be able to sit down and work with a big brand and find a way to, one, make them more diverse, make them engage with audiences better. This is like a very Sam living in a happy rainbow world, because we all know rainbow worlds don't exist. But I mean, I'd love to be able to find a way to make them sustainable, to find a way to strategize with brands to make a big brand benefit the community as much as make a profit. That's kind of where I'd love to see myself. But again, apparently that doesn't exist. And every time I've moved into corporate, I've hated my life. So I just don't know if that's an actual thing.
Yeah. I think there's just like lifelessness when it comes to corporations. The bigger they get,
brands don't care. They don't care. They tell us they do, but they probably don't. I'd like to think that maybe if I was working with one, they would actually care, but I highly doubt it.
What are you consuming right now for fun? Like, beside playing Rainbow Six Siege, like what else are you playing? What are you watching, reading, listening to?
So I played lots of Siege, which I don't know what's happened. That's been like a new development in the last month. It's like my entire life, which I'm not sure if it's healthy, but it is what it is. So lots of Siege. I love watching documentaries. So anything that comes out on HBO or Netflix or anything documentary related, that's normally pretty dark and twisted. That's my go-to for watching. I love stuff like that. But I did get into Community during lockdown, which is something I'm ashamed to say I never watched. And I'm kind of obsessed with Community.
I also recently watched Community, and it's like such a amazing show.
Magic.
Yeah.
It's just magic. So I watch lots of Community. I weekly love to watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. I think he's a genius. So I watch that every week. And in terms of music, I'm listening to Run the Jewels at the moment. I really like their new stuff, as well as Childish Gambino. It's not really a new album. I think it came out a few months ago, but I really like that. So I've been watching listening to lots of that. And then reading, I really love autobiographies. So those are normally what I read. But at the moment, I'm reading basically it's like the history of esports, Paul Chelona's book. I'm in the middle of reading that, which is fascinating because there's so much in there about sort of video games and gaming and competitive gaming that I didn't know. So that's what I'm reading. And I think that's everything. Yeah. Watching, playing, listening to, and reading.
Cool. Seems like we still are missing 2 SA Geeks.
Yeah, we're still here.
Oh,
You just can't see that.
All right, you guys gonna ask the last question on the list, or should I?
What's the craziest thing you've ever done in your life, and how did it turn out?
Craziest thing I ever did in my life was
This podcast, craziest thing.
I do think that the craziest thing, it's such a cliche. No, I mean, okay, no. So I'll go with the second craziest thing I ever did. I once followed a dude to the UK. So he lived in the UK. I'd met him here in South Africa. He was working here for a bit. And I followed him to the UK. I used to, my office, the company that I worked for had an office in London. So I'd convinced them once a month to send me to London because I really believed that this was the one. You know how that goes? And I think the craziest thing was constantly getting on a plane to go there and then staying with him, believing that we knew each other well enough that this could turn into something real. And I look back sometimes. I mean, it didn't turn out well. I'm not with that person.
Obviously.
But I just sometimes,
yeah.
I sometimes look back at that and I find it kind of insane. I just put my life on hold and would constantly go over there once a month for like a week, 2 weeks, because I really believed that this long distance relationship was going to work. That's the second craziest thing. I think the first craziest thing was quitting my it was a very successful, very good, very secure corporate job for no reason other than the fact that I just decided that my boss, I didn't like the way, he didn't even treat me badly, he treated me very well. I watched him treat people that he considered below him badly, and I just one day decided I didn't like him and I quit my job the next day. Possibly that was, like I said, that's the cliched one, but possibly the craziest thing I've ever done is just quit my job because I didn't like the way he spoke to someone else. Also turned out that this is what I get to do now, so maybe it was the best thing. But yeah, those are the two craziest thing. I basically just live very spur of the moment and make emotionally charged decisions like a 13-year-old teenage girl. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a flip of the coin.
That well for you, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most, the big life decisions it's worked out well. The other life decisions, absolute chaos. So I mean, take your wins, right? Take your wins.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to after lockdown ends?
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I don't like nightclubs. I really don't. I'm not someone I can't remember the last time I went to a nightclub. When lockdown ends, I want to go to a nightclub and I want to dance with other sweaty people for at least 3 hours. And I want to be up against people. I want to be drunk. I want to be jiving. I want us to feel like we are invincible because I don't even like nightclubs, but Corona's made me miss that. I just miss sweaty, drunk people all dancing badly together. So the moment we can, that's what I'm doing.
That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I would still never go to a nightclub.
No.
This has never been a thing, guys. You have to understand. I'm not. If you ask any of my friends who know me for like 10 years, I can't tell you the last time I went to a nightclub. So it's not like something that I do, but I don't know what it is during lockdown. I was like, I just have to go. I have to go dance. I have to be with my people. We have to do it. I don't know where it's come from, but I'll go. I guarantee I'll go, and within 5 minutes, be like, I want to go home. Like that's what's going to happen. But yeah.
That always happens to me when I jump out of my bubble and go to new social situations. But like 5 minutes later, can I go home now? What am I doing here?
I made the worst life choice. I don't want to be at this nightclub. Everyone is sweating. It's disgusting. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Could have been sitting on my couch playing a video game or watching a movie and say, what am I doing here?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's always how it works though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Into the comfy clothes. No such thing for us here at clubs. Gigging. Never had a chance to actually get into comfy clothes.
No.
Had to wear the most uncomfortable jackets, hats, guitar strapped to your chest the whole time. Not the most comfortable thing in the world.
It must be really hard to be a rock star. I mean, no. Best job, guitar strapped to your chest, jamming the tunes.
Yeah, I wanted to, but I can't sing, so it's pointless.
He lies.
Anyway, let's get on with this, and let's get to the end, shall we? And Sam, we'd like for you to do something. Please plug your channel. Tell us where we can find you, where our viewers can find you.
So I'm basically at TechGirlZA everywhere on the internet. That's the easiest way for me to describe it. So it's twitch.tv/TechGirlZA. I'm at TechGirlZA on Twitter, Instagram, and then also techgirl.co.za or techgirlblog.com, depending on what you feel like, to go and see my written stuff. But yeah, pretty easy to follow. And yeah, that's it, really.
Has anybody
You have a lot
sneaked?
of questions jumping in here.
What is
Just
that?
I'll answer it.
Sorry, in a question. Angel?
Yeah. Wait,
Okay, well, actually, Chicken Winger's girlfriend wants to know how long it took before you succeeded with your blog and where you are now.
So the blog, I started it 6 months before I started getting review product. Now, review product's a little bit different. So they send you the product and they take it back. It took at least a year and a half before I got paid for content. And that was like a lot of work. But yeah, so a year and a half before I got paid for content. The blog has never been something that's could sustain me. In terms of the esports stuff, that worked very different, like we spoke about. So I got into esports, was just doing it for fun. Within the space of 6 months, was getting paid work, and then going overseas within 7 to 8 months. So that was luck. I don't think that I'm the norm. I don't think that this works for everyone. I think most people need to budget on a year to 2 years of growing a community and doing all of that before it becomes a situation where you can make it financially viable. Also, the longer you can avoid. This sounds really counterintuitive because obviously brand money allows you to pay the bills, but the longer you can avoid taking money from brands and sustaining yourself, the better, because brands will want to direct you and tell you what to do. And until your community and the foundation is built and you know that people know who you are and you can be yourself, you need to be really careful because that brand money can force you to have to do things and go different directions and potentially lose yourself in the process. So I always try to say to people, if I could go back in time, I would have waited even longer until I knew exactly sort of where I sat in the scheme of things. But yeah, so for anyone who wants to create content and wants to do this stuff, I'd say it normally takes a year to 2 years. There are people that have obviously had different types of luck, but you need to grind it out for quite a while. I don't know if that answers the question. I think it does.
I think it does.
I think you've like rounded it out quite nicely, actually.
Yeah. What I wanted to know is, now that you a prolific person, does your username ever get snaked on platforms?
Do you know that someone on PUBG, I don't know who it is, but someone, and they're a South African on PUBG, calls themselves Techgirl, and they're really bad at that game. And I've always got friends who send me, they're like, oh my gosh, Sam, look, I shot you. And I'm like, that's not me. Because I don't play as Techgirl I don't play as Techgirl on Rainbow Six. I think it's only Overwatch that I'm TechGirlZA. Everywhere else, I've actually got a different name. But Techgirl in PUBG, like, get good. You're letting the team down. If you want the name, be better.
You must earn it.
Yeah, you must earn it. Stop sucking, because my friends keep shooting you and they think it's me and it's upsetting me.
That's hilarious.
Or it is you and you just don't want to admit it.
I promise it's not me. I am pretty useless at PUBG though. I'm not going to lie. But I'd own it. If someone shoots me in the head and they know it's me, I'll own it and I'll say that's me. Whoever that person is not me. But the people that have shot that person, I've now told them I don't really share my online nicks when I'm playing games. But they now know who I am, so they know if they shoot me, they can own that. But yes, it's actually a good idea. I'll just deny it next time. I know I'm TechGirlZA and Overwatch. I'll just be like, no, look, go watch this podcast where I specifically said I never play as that name. I'll get away with it.
Reference material. We'll give you the time code that we can.
Thank you, guys.
Right, Chins.
All
Where do
right.
people find you?
You can find me at Geekoscopy, unless you on Twitch, in which case it might be mirrored, but on YouTube it's right. So let's try and get it unmirrored. This time though,
Doing it. He's killed it. He's doing different things now.
Oh, is it? Oh no, that's wrong.
He turned his camera off.
There we go. At Geekoscopy.
Yay!
You can find me all over the internet, but mostly on YouTube, Twitch, and Anchor, Spotify, all the relevant places. But you won't find me on MSN or Dig or MySpace. You won't find me there. No.
I think I still have a MySpace account.
That's dead now.
Sad that makes us dead. So it's too soon to laugh.
No, it's not. It's never too soon to laugh. It's Microsoft.
Are you scheduling your laughs, Kez? Why don't you?
I'm a Microsoft engineer and I still hate them. Angel, where can everyone find us?
Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube.
There you go. That's where everyone can be found everywhere. You can't see me on camera, so I can't do all the normal things that I do. No. So Tunes is going to pretend to be me.
I'll try.
Sam do it.
Yeah, Tunes is gonna make all the hand movements and whatnot. I don't think Sam can do what I do though. It's very difficult to actually pull it off. Okay, because it's the death metal.
I don't know what he's talking about, Sam. I was just doing things.
I was just copying you. I was like, I can do hand thingies. Look at me with my hands.
Actually, that Tunes has to do though is the ending off.
Finger in front of you, and then
wait for me to scream. Point at the camera. Yes, that's
pointing at the camera.
One. Yeah.
I'm not done yet though, because first I have to say, where are we going?
Nowhere.
We're not sending our people anywhere.
No. Wait, we can go. We'll go to Nano.
You guys raiding people.
So we're sending you guys off to watch Nano PC.
I don't know this person.
Just because, why not? We do that all the time. But yes, thank you guys so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Thank you for watching and all that. Sam, thanks again for joining us. We do appreciate it. It's always awesome. But Tunes, I need that finger because, as always, remember, keep it geeky. Bye.
I tried my best.
Wait.
Oh yeah, you guys are still alive. Have to do